Citizen of the world. Let's start with that phrase. You've probably heard it thrown around, right? But what does it actually mean? Today, we're going to dig into this huge idea called cosmopolitanism. It's an ancient concept that basically asks us to think of ourselves as part of one big global team. And you're not going to believe this, but its story starts with a guy whose name is now tied to something, well, for all the wrong reasons.
Okay, so let's jump right in with this really weird modern mix-up, Diogenes syndrome. Yeah, it's a real medical term, but naming it after Diogenes? As you're about to see, it's like a spectacular historical case of mistaken identity. They got the guy completely backward.
I mean, you've got to love the irony here. It's just, wow. Diogenes syndrome? It describes someone who compulsively hoards things, living in, extreme squalor. But the philosopher Diogenes, he was the exact opposite. He was the ultimate minimalist. This guy lived with incredible purpose. He got rid of almost everything he owned. And he was always out in public, talking to people, challenging them. It's a total 180-degree contradiction.
So, this crazy mix-up pretty much forces the question, right? If he wasn't this reclusive hoarder, then who was the real Diogenes of Sinope?
All right, let's meet the man himself. Picture this. It's the 4th century BCE in ancient Greece. Diogenes was what we call a cynic philosopher, which, honestly, you could think of him as kind of like an ancient Greek punk rocker. He looked at society's rules, its manners, all that stuff, and just called it a bunch of artificial lies. And he didn't just write about it, he lived his philosophy, loud and proud, right in the middle of Athens for everyone to see.
Yeah, he was so committed to this idea of rejecting convention that his home was a big ceramic jar in a public marketplace. He had pretty much nothing, just a cloak, a staff. For a little while he had a cup, but then he saw a kid drinking water with his hands and was like, "What do I need this for?" and threw it away. For Diogenes, true freedom meant wanting absolutely nothing.
And his most famous stunt? Oh, it perfectly captures his whole vibe. Get this, he'd walk through the busiest part of the market in broad daylight, holding up a lit lantern. And when people would stop him and ask, what are you doing? He'd say, "I'm looking for an honest man." Now, he wasn't really expecting to find one. This was pure performance art. It was a public spectacle designed to show everyone that their precious values, their etiquette, their entire way of life was basically a sham.
And his attitude towards power and fame? Absolutely legendary. So the story goes, Alexander the Great, the guy who conquered most of the known world, heard about this philosopher and went to meet him. Alexander was so impressed, he told Diogenes, "Ask for anything you want and it's yours." And Diogenes, who was just like sunbathing, didn't even sit up. He just looked at him and said, "Stand a little out of my sun." Can you imagine? He valued a simple sunbeam more than anything the most powerful man on earth could possibly give him.
So you see this radical outsider, right? And this brings us to the crucial moment. Someone asked him where he was from, probably trying to label him, put him in a box. "Are you from Athens? From Sinope?" And his answer was revolutionary. He didn't name a city. He said, "I am a cosmopolites, a citizen of the world." And boom, right there, in that moment, he coined the term and the entire idea of cosmopolitanism.
So how on earth did this wild idea from a guy living in a jar turn into a major global philosophy? Let's follow the journey of this idea as it evolves over the next couple of thousand years.
Okay, so Diogenes basically lights the spark, but it was the Stoics who came along next and really fanned the flames. They took his radical idea and turned it into a whole system, a core part of their philosophy. Fast forward a long time to the Enlightenment, and you have thinkers like Immanuel Kant picking up the thread, dreaming of a League of Nations to create global peace. And then, in the 20th century, that dream actually starts to become a reality. We get institutions like the United Nations, which are built on that exact cosmopolitan principle, the idea that we're all part of one single human community.
So, that was then. What about now? What does being a citizen of the world even mean today? Well, the idea isn't just one single thing anymore. It's kind of branched out into these different flavors that touch on everything from our morals to our politics and, yeah, even our wallets.
So let's break down how this actually works. You've got moral cosmopolitanism, which basically says a person's life in a country halfway across the world is worth just as much as your neighbor's. Then there's political cosmopolitanism. That's the push for global groups to work together on huge problems like climate change or war crimes, stuff no single country can solve alone. You've got economic cosmopolitanism, which is all about creating one big global market with free trade. And finally, cultural cosmopolitanism, which encourages us to, embrace all kinds of human diversity, instead of just being loyal to one single culture.
But, and this is a big but, this whole vision of a unified world has always had some really powerful critics. I mean, for as long as people have been saying we're all one, others have been pushing back, arguing that it's either a really dangerous idea or just a naive fantasy.
And these critics raise some seriously tough questions. They worry that a single world government could become this inescapable global tyranny. I mean, if you don't like it, where do you go? They also point out that a single global market can actually make inequality worse and often hurts the environment. But maybe the biggest objection is more personal. It's the question of loyalty. Don't we have special duties to our own families, our communities, our countries? And is it even psychologically possible for us as humans who need a local identity to feel a real connection to all 8 billion people on the planet?
The philosopher Jean-Jacques Rousseau put this criticism so well. He said, "Cosmopolitans boast that they love everyone, to have the right to love no one." Ouch. What he meant was, this big, abstract love for all humanity can be a bit of a cop-out. It lets you feel good without having to deal with the messy, difficult, real-world obligations you have to the actual people around you, your neighbors, your family, the people in your town.
So all of this leaves us with a huge question. And it's a question for right now. We live in an age of global problems, right? Pandemics, climate change, economic crises. None of these things care about our borders. So is cosmopolitanism an ideal we desperately need to aim for? Or is it a beautiful but ultimately impossible dream that just goes against our basic human nature? The debate that kicked off with a guy living in a jar has seriously never been more relevant.